In this help video, I'd like to show you how to place an Elliott wave count on the current chart you've got open. For this, we hover the mouse over the pivot you'd like to analyze. For example, here's a daily chart of the British pound against the US dollar. So if I hover my mouse over this pivot high here, you can see I've got our intermediate degree pivots on the chart here. So if I hover the mouse over here, if I right mouse click, then our Elliott wave minor, Elliott wave intermediate and Elliott wave major options are available on the right mouse click. The normal or the most common degree of Elliott waves I tend to use myself is the Elliott wave intermediate. So now I select Elliott wave intermediate, and if there's a valid count as of that pivot, then the count is placed on the chart for you. Here you can see the software's found a lovely 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with the high right at the typical 5 WPT. These WPTs are wave price targets, and you can see by the labels inside them, these are the areas of where the particular wave that's been found is most likely to end. In other words, the typical area, the minimum area and the maximum area in this particular wave 5. I'm just going to right mouse click and clear all. The Elliott wave software that we use is based on my isolation approach to Elliott wave analysis. In other words, we don't believe in placing an Elliott wave count on all of the charts all of the time. The reason for this is because of the cyclical nature of markets. Markets go in cycles. In other words, there are periods when the patterns are unclear, and quite frankly, you shouldn't be placing Elliott wave counts on a chart. In reality, Elliott wave patterns are only clear on a chart about half the time. So that's why we don't place Elliott wave analysis on the charts automatically. We have to then do it manually by going over a pivot. A good example of this is if I want to analyze this last pivot here as of the last low here. If I right mouse click here and then choose Elliott wave intermediate, you see it comes up with nothing. It comes up with nothing because there's no particular Elliott wave pattern found at this particular point in time. So that's why we use our Elliott wave tools in isolation. The Elliott wave count can find all of the common Elliott wave patterns. If I go to this low, right mouse click, do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see at that particular point in time it found a wave 4, which stopped right in our wave 4 WPT. Let's clear all. I go to the low here, right mouse click, Elliott wave intermediate. It found a wave 2 or B that's stopping right in our wave 2 or B WPT. Right mouse click and clear all. The other way to put the Elliott wave count on the chart is via our right menu option here, where you go to Elliott wave, you click on the button, then again we have the options here where we have Elliott wave intermediate, major or minor. Again, if you choose the degree you wish, left click on the degree you wish and then click on the pivot you wish to analyze. Again, if I go back to this high and analyze it, you can see it's found our wave 5 high there. You can then do clear all Elliott waves. If I come down to the settings, you can see here you have the options for your colors, for your ups and downs and font as well. If you wanted to get an idea of an ongoing pattern as of the last bar, what you can do is have a look in the scanner. If I just bring the scanner out here, I've just hovered over this, and if I look in the scanner, you can see I've got some Forex charts in here. If I scroll along, there is an Elliott wave column in here where this gives the Elliott wave pattern as of the last pivot on the chart. So as you can see, the column I have highlighted there is the British pound, which is the one I'm looking at. If I go along, you can see there's nothing in the Elliott wave column, and as we've seen, there's no particular pattern as of that last bar there. But if I want to have a look at a chart that has an Elliott wave pattern as of the last pivot, again it's the last pivot we're looking at here. So say for example I want to look at this particular market. It told us that it was a wave 3, didn't it? It said it was a wave 3 as of the last pivot. Remember, it's not the last bar, it's the last pivot. So now if I go to the chart, I look at the last pivot. Again, we're using our connected pivots. So if I right mouse click on that connected pivot, do Elliott wave intermediate, you can see there it's found the wave 3, which is exactly what it had in the scanner. That particular cross rate is the euro, Japanese yen. So in that way you can use the Elliott wave column in the scanner to find the Elliott wave pattern as of the last pivot on the chart. So I'll just go back to the British pound chart because that's a nice one with a nice clear 5-wave pattern going into that high. So remember, this is what we do with our Elliott wave tool, is that we don't place an Elliott wave pattern on the chart automatically because we don't believe that Elliott wave patterns are applicable 100% of the time, i.e. on all of the markets all the time. My unique isolation approach to Elliott wave means that we only place patterns on the charts in isolation. In other words, we only expect a valid pattern to be clear about half the time. Remember, we're using these for looking for potential trade setups. We're not looking to try and forecast the future and see where markets are going to go. So again, the easiest way to do this is hover over a pivot, right mouse click, and then do Elliott wave intermediate. If there's a valid pattern as of that particular bar, it will place that on the chart for you. If there's no particular pattern as of that particular bar, as of the end here, then nothing will be placed on the chart for you. So it really is as simple as that. If you did want to try and forecast where a market or potential support and resistance zones are in advance, what we can do is use our WPT or wave price target tool that I'll have a look at in our next video.